Yo, what's up, everybody? And this is the Spell Basketball Show. I am your host, Azlan Williams, and we got my guy back, Justin Adams, today. How you doing today, Justin?
Doing well, blessed. I am a little bit away from the children for the moment right here. By the way, over here you can see me with my son, Alexander. This is my first boy, so I'm excited to be able to be here today, Aslan.
Yes, sir. Always blessed to have you on here. This guy, when I tell y'all, Justin has been just such a bright spot in my life, not only in my life as a friend, as a homie, but helping me get into this field of being an analyst and everything, as he's been doing this for a while, and also a fellow Montbella Warrior.
Come on, baby, come on.
We gotta rep the city, you know what I'm saying? Yes, sir. But Justin's on today just to help me talk about a little bit about the NBA Finals. The NBA season just ended with the Oklahoma City Thunder winning the championship, and it was a great run, even a better finals. I thought this was one of the best finals that we've seen in a long time. And so, Justin, talk about the finals. What do you think happened this year as the playoffs ended this season?
Well, first and foremost, congratulations to Oklahoma City Thunder. They were the best team all year long, had 68 wins. I believe had 85 when you look at all the wins they had in total. Let's see, 84 will be their final number. So they deserved it. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you see the rest of the crew did a fantastic job. And all the work that they put in the regular season really paid off once they got into the playoffs. They won 2 Game 7s. The other 2 series, you had one that was a sweep. You had the other one that ended in 5 when they took on the Minnesota Timberwolves. So they earned the right to be able to go through the route that they did and to have that deciding Game 7 at home. And as it saw, they really needed that, especially with the young team the way that they were. So it's great for them to be able to get that dub. They got the job done. But I think everybody will look back at this series and they will say, would have been different if Tyrese Halliburton didn't get injured? Would it have been different if Tyrese Halliburton, who had 9 points, 3 or 4 from 3 at the time, if he didn't tear his Achilles? Would this game have been different? And I believe so. And the main reason why is when the Thunder went on that run in the third quarter, one of the biggest things is when you have that pressure defense by Oklahoma City, you need somebody to be able to settle things down. And once your point guard is out, especially a point guard the way that Tyrese Halliburton is to be able to have that fast pace of play, really to slow things down for the team, and really get them organized, rather. You didn't have that. And so now people are playing out of position. You could try as much as you can to be able to go and say, hey, we'll have a substitute for him in many respects to try to have that next man up mentality. But when it's time to win a championship, it's not really next man up. It's who you got, and your stars will take you home. And unfortunately, the best player for the Pacers was out just a couple of minutes into the first quarter. So I think that's the one thing that everybody will think back to when they think of this finals.
Absolutely. And, first of all, prayers to Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, I felt like I was sick after that. Like it had happened to me. And, throughout this entire playoffs, I've been definitely a Tyrese Halliburton fan and have been for the last seasons. And so for him to, have one of the most historic, playoff runs, tying Reggie Miller in the top 3 with LeBron James being the other one, of having the most clutch baskets in playoff history, it was almost kind of like I was ready to see another Tyrese Halliburton big to get Indiana their first NBA championship. But as you said, just a few minutes into the game, after going 3 for 4, hitting 3 threes, 3 out of 4 threes in that first, 5 minutes of the game. And, this game is tied 16-16. He just makes a move to get to the basket and, out goes his Achilles. So very tough. But as you said, what if, there's always so many what ifs in the game of basketball. throughout the history of the game. And that is a huge what if, especially because they came out so just motivated, especially Tyrese Halliburton. Like I said, hitting three threes, in those first 5 minutes. But it's one of those things, it's, you hate to say it, it's life. It's
Yeah.
one of some of those things that happen. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that have happened multiple times in these playoffs, and we'll get into that here shortly. But cannot take any credit away from the Oklahoma City Thunder. Again, have been the most dominant season we've seen in recent years, since the Warriors actually, when they went 73-9. So, again, congrats. Shea averaged 30.3 points a game, the best scorer in the game right now. And I'm sure Justin would agree with me on that,
Well, he's the best scorer. I think now when you say best overall, that's a different story.
Oh, yeah,
You
absolutely.
say
Yeah,
the best
yeah,
scorer,
best,
you could definitely put him there.
yeah.
I think you put Jokic probably somewhere around obviously top three, if not second, to be honest.
Right.
Giannis in there as well. Steph is still putting up points.
Mm-hmm.
There are other guys who are coming too, right? I think you'll see next year Cade Cunningham, for example. You see Detroit take that next step, for example. I think even Atlanta getting Kristaps Porzingis, and I know we'll talk about that later on. That's going to help out guys like Trae Young to be able to go and have that other player to be able to not only dish the ball to, but also open up some shots. So
Right.
it's just the NBA is just so interesting because literally the moment that you say we're done, congratulations, we're going to see a dynasty, you have the Houston Rockets go get KD. So I mean, it's just like it just doesn't end. So when you have the opportunity to win it, you got to go and get the job done. And so good for Oklahoma City.
Absolutely. And I can definitely see, not just out of the West, but the NBA total, everything going through OKC for at least the next few seasons. But I think, moving forward, shout out to Sam Presti. I mean, although at the moment when they were making these trades and everything, we're like, what are you doing? But, throughout the trades and everything that have happened over the past 5 seasons, he's gotten gems. You look at Jalen Williams, who he got part of those trades. Shea Gilgeous was part of those trades for Paul George when they traded from the Clippers over to OKC. All these different moves that you've seen, a long time ago that just really played out, and shout out to J-Dub averaging 23.6 in the finals, when he was absolutely a no-show in a couple games where you're like, okay, is this dude who we really think he is?
Right.
Definitely. And even in game 7 in the first half, we're like, bro has to show up if they're going to win this, because Indiana was up 1, going into the half in that game 7, but showed up big. And, again, congrats to the Oklahoma City Thunder on a great season, but also capping off a great season as well. But this kind of, again, going back to the Tyrese Halliburton injury, this brings us into our next topic, which we're going to talk about, which is the major injuries that we've had in these playoffs. I mean, we saw first Damian Lillard go down with an Achilles tear. Then the next round, in round 2, we saw Jason Tatum go down with a ruptured Achilles. And then, of course, we saw, Tyrese Halliburton in game 7 of these playoffs. And so my question to you, Justin, is, does the NBA need to do something with a lot of these injury tears? Because we also saw some major injuries as well. John Morant went down in that first round against Oklahoma City. We saw Aaron Gordon go down, even though he played in game 7 against the Oklahoma City Thunder, he did have a bad hamstring injury.
Right, too.
And I mean, he could barely walk. And so with these type of injuries happening, do you think the NBA needs to shorten the season? I know the Nuggets particularly, literally for 3 weeks straight, played a game every other day. The only time they had a 2-day break was before they played game 7 against the Thunder. So at that point, which I was very frustrated with at that moment, I'll be honest with you, us Nuggets fans. But what do you think the NBA needs to do with some of these major injuries that we've seen in the playoffs happen this season?
Well, the first thing is that they need to go and retool the way that they have the playoffs. So what I mean by that is you can't have a game where the Nuggets play game 3 against Oklahoma City Thunder late at night, and then they're your afternoon game on Sunday. Like, that's just ridiculous. That's not going to work. And you have to think about your product at the end of the day. You want people to be able to go and watch these games and enjoy these games. So I know there's a lot of people who are saying, hey, they should go back to the format where it's, 5-game series in the first round, and then maybe you can have another 5-game series in the second round, and then you have your 7-7 in the conference finals and then NBA finals. You may not have to go there. I will say that if you're a team that has already gone through the playing game, and then you want to play another 7-game series, that's kind of ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
You want to play a game, they're already at a disadvantage. Have this thing in 5. If you
Right.
didn't get the job done early on, well, then, hey, you're going to lose game 1 generally anyway. That
Right.
means you're going to be gassed again probably for game 2. Have this
Mm,
in a 5-game series. Like, cut that down. I think you could really go and benefit it a whole lot more if you'll be able to go and do that. The issues that you'll have, though, is you already cut down training camp.
right.
What can you really do in the season? Do you
Right.
then give guys more extended time on an all-star break? Do you continue? Because people are saying, well, cut down the schedule and start it up on Christmas Day, which will make a lot of sense. But guess what? The NFL just took over Christmas Day. It's a
Right.
business at the end of the day. So you have to have these games. You have to have these inventory. I think you try to find a way how to take out as many back-to-backs as possible.
Mhm.
And then, to be honest with some of these teams, be
Mhm.
okay with telling guys, hey, you're not playing.
Right.
I know we don't like all this, and people saying, well, you're doing this, you're managing guys, or you're sitting them down and all this. No, it's about making it through the season. It's about making it through your career and
Right.
trying to make it through as injury free as possible. You go back to the Nuggets, for example. Yeah, this year you had an injury with Aaron Gordon and his hamstring, which came at the end of a game. But you
Mhm.
take a good look at the year before with Jamal Murray, where he had a calf strain, the same injury
Mhm.
that Halliburton had. So can you
Right.
imagine the Nuggets going all the way through the playoffs and then somewhere in the conference finals that pops? That
Right.
hurts your product. You
Mhm.
want people, you want that casual fan to be able to come and watch your product and enjoy your product, and you can build around the names. You
Right.
can't build around names that aren't available. You can't build around names that aren't playing. And nobody wants to come and see that. So I would love to see the NBA take another step to do something to, whether you increase the rest, whether you do whatever you can in between in the playoffs,
Right.
just to give these guys that opportunity to be able to recruit their bodies as much as you can. And I'll end it with this, because I know I'm talking a lot.
You
The
good.
NHL has the most physical, I mean, physical playoffs. Guys play through ridiculous injuries, and they're
Mhm.
looking to add games. They're looking to go from 82 to 84 games.
Right.
So it's really never about player safety. It's really about doing the most that you can to give these guys as much rest as possible,
Mhm.
so that they don't, injure themselves. And now you have a team like Boston who are selling off their assets,
Yeah.
and now you won't have Jason Tatum next year either. I mean,
Right.
just about this quickly. That again, I'm talking a lot.
You good.
Next year in the East, who are your top teams? I mean, seriously, think about it for a moment.
Mhm.
Indiana won't be there because they
Yeah.
won't have Halliburton. They're not going to be there, so you could just take them off. You don't have a point guard. You're gone with that.
Right.
Celtics, they don't have
Mhm.
the pieces right now, so they're not going to contend. So that's 2 teams that were the top of the tier. So now you have the Knicks, who don't have a head coach. You
Mhm.
may have Atlanta be that type of team if they're healthy, what they
Right.
could do. What will Milwaukee do? Will
Yeah.
Giannis still be around?
Mhm.
But they still have the injury with a little. So now you look around and say, okay, who's going to be that next team? It
Right.
wouldn't surprise me, Aslan, if the Detroit Pistons are one of those surprise teams next year in
Yeah.
what will be a down Eastern Conference. I
Right.
think Cade Cunningham, if they could be able to get everybody healthy, and JD Ivey, he had a season in the injury. So if he comes back healthy as well,
Mhm.
you're looking at some playoff basketball going deep next year in Detroit.
I agree with you on that. And I don't want to disrespect Cleveland because they're still going to be
Oh, there you
around.
go. Cleveland too. Yes, yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
was going to say I don't want to, even though they got bumped out and they had some injuries as well. Darius Garland,
Mhm.
uh,
Three
uh,
guys. Three
yeah,
guys into game one against Indiana.
DeAndre Hunter, Evan Mobley, they were hurt too. So I look at that, but you made two points that you made that I'm gonna extend on a little bit. First of all, the load management. I know a lot of us were looking at like, man, when we were looking at the 90s era where people just didn't take breaks. 90s, 80s, 70s, people didn't take breaks. Kevin McHale playing with torn ACLs, and we look at that. But now you look at it in a stance where we're kind of like, man, I don't. Now I'm like, that load management might be something that we didn't like look at before, because we're looking at it as in fans as
Right.
opposed to being players. And for me, and we got our guy Mike Patton on joining us right now too.
Yes, sir.
And so what's up, Mike? But when I look at that, I'm like, okay, man, now we see, like, dang, load management was probably to prevent this, and now there's been changes around that. And you look at the Indiana Pacers. Do they go get somebody to kind of fill in for Tyrese Halliburton, that can maybe manage it? You look at that. I look at, I think the Celtics, that's kind of one of those situations where I'm just like, I don't know about that. They got rid of Drew Holiday. Again, you got rid of Kristaps Porzingis. Drew Holiday was one of those glue guys, not only offensively where he could put up a good 15 a game, but also he was their best defender on the wing, outside of Derek White. So you look at the Celtics, I'm like, I don't know if they're going to be back, around there. Will they make the playoffs? I believe they will. As far as the Knicks are pretty much going to have their same players, depending on who they get as their coach. I think Mike Brown will be the perfect fit for the New York Knicks with what they have.
Ooh, I like that name. I
Yeah,
like that name.
that's
Because Jason Kidd's getting tossed around like a, hot
yeah.
potato.
And he ain't going. Jason Kidd's not gonna go anywhere. Now, that Dallas already said, like, we're not. You can't
Right,
talk to him.
right.
You know what I'm saying? Another one, Taylor Jenkins. That's another coach that I think would be a good fit for the New York Knicks. But I think as far as grit that the New York Knicks need, I definitely believe for sure that Mike Brown would be the perfect fit for what's available out there at this moment. But the East is wide open. I like what you said about Detroit. That's a team to look at, with especially how they played this year. Again, the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think they're going to be the favorites. There. But as far as the Eastern Conference is going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
Another one with Desmond Bain going to Orlando. Now,
Ooh, I like that.
team, and Mike's talking about that in the chat as well. But Orlando, that's another team, a young team that gets a good veteran presence, a good 20-point a game scorer in Desmond Bain that has just been added to that team. So they don't have Cole Anthony anymore. He was there kind of like when all seems lost, I'm gonna come out and do something after I haven't done anything in about 5 months.
Right.
Right. Cole Anthony's no longer there. They get rid of KCP as well. A good 3-and-D player, didn't do as well as he did in Denver with Orlando, but
Sure.
that's another team to look out for. So you made some good points, but as far as the injuries, and I'm going to end this before we move on to our next topic. I do think something like I forgot what that first round 5-game series that they did used to have back in the early 2000s, and prior to that, I think that is a good idea. That would at least alleviate some of the teams, especially the play-in tournament teams. You look at the Memphis Grizzlies, who had to play 2 games before they got to that championship. I mean, there were 2 games.
Yeah.
So they lost to Golden State, then they beat Dallas, and then they had to go against the number 1 seed. So,
and just think about how they had to do it, though. You
yeah,
played them, Friday night they played that game? Thursday, Friday night they played that game?
correct.
You
Yes,
played game 1 on Sunday.
exactly.
You played that game at the crib, and then you're flying all the way. Even though Oklahoma City's not that far away, you're still jumping on a plane and you're going from there.
Exactly, and that's after finishing the regular season. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, yeah,
We're looking at high-stakes games.
Exactly. And that was the thing too. It's just like with that bottom half, especially in the West, you had 6 teams. You had 6 teams literally fight outside of Dallas because they just automatically got that, that 8th spot or that 10th spot by default, because 9 through 4, like literally you're like, we don't know who's going to be in here in these last 3 games. And so, like you said, 3 grueling games, and was it the Clippers and Warriors who had that game just to figure out who was going to get that 4th through.
Had it on Sunday. Yep, that's how the Nuggets played the Clips.
Exactly. So that's something I think, and Adam Silver, I believe, has done an amazing job at making adjustments since he's been in as commissioner. I think he's done an amazing job in some things. Of course, we can all get better at whatever it is, but I do think he will look at that, especially because the players have been talking about it more lately.
Yeah.
As far as like you saw Aaron Gordon after they lost, he said, I think this needs to change up a little bit. we haven't sat down, at all in the playoffs, whereas
Yeah,
other teams have gotten a little bit more breaks. And that's also due to the hockey teams as well, where
for
they
sure.
have to have those contractual issues, or deals based off of who's going to play here, based off of seating and everything. And that's how, there's a lot that factors in with it. But I do believe
Yeah,
that, you know, Adam Silver will do his due diligence and figure out something, because these injuries are just crazy. There's so
yeah,
many injuries, and it's happening to a lot of players, but especially to the major superstars that have a little bit more on their back. So I
yeah.
believe something will have to come.
Agreed. Let me give you one more team too,
Yeah.
depending on if their superstar is healthy. I mean, Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, again, it's a down east. I will
Mhm.
say it again, it's a down east. If Joel Embiid could be healthy for the full season and he's healthy going into the postseason, which I know is a lot to ask, but if
Mhm.
he is healthy, they got a good chance as anybody else.
And look, I like to say this: you have to, in these runs and in these opportunities, despite we don't want anybody to be hurt, but you have got to be opportunistic as well. This is, like you said, the 76ers or another team, if healthy, and especially just drafting VJ from Baylor last night, who's a very athletic
Yeah,
guard.
extreme.
You,
Mhm,
pa-
mhm.
you partner him with Maxi and Jerry McCain, who was doing very well before he got hurt. So they have the pieces, but it all comes down to health.
Yep.
Will Embiid be there? Which, even a couple of years ago, I'm like, okay, Embiid hasn't been playing. So, him coming into the playoffs, he's finally going to look like he has some life to him. And it looked like the same Joel Embiid. So,
Bingo. Mhm.
he's not durable. And that's what I always said separated him and Jokic, because Embiid is not durable when it comes down to the playoffs.
Right,
Jokic
right.
is. And
Yep,
so, yeah,
100%.
that
100%.
yeah, that's it right there. But thank you for your take on that. Right now, we're getting ready to talk about the NBA draft. NBA
Yes,
draft
sir.
yesterday. We saw, of course, Cooper Flag got drafted #1 to the Dallas Mavericks, who had a tumultuous season last year. And I mean,
That's the word you use?
yeah,
Tumultuous?
tumultuous. I mean, depressed. I don't know what to say. Like, this was one of the I can't. That's just a tumultuous season. That's just the best word I could come up with at this moment, man.
Look, man, look,
Um,
look, look. My son right here. You see my son move over here. Here. See that right
yeah,
there? Go down.
yeah,
He just for all Mavs fans, when Luca got traded, just look at that. That just make you feel a whole lot better because everybody was trying to go and destroy Nico Harrison, man. That
man.
was
I mean, completely destroy. I mean, we have to do just a little backtracking on this whole situation for those of you all who don't know. And if you don't know, you just been under a rock somewhere, pretty much. But Luka Doncic of the Dallas Mavericks, the former Luka Doncic of the Dallas Mavericks, was
yes.
traded, for Anthony Davis and Max Christie, just randomly.
Hey, hey, and that first round pick, that all important first round pick, by the way,
Yes,
that just
yes.
set it off.
Yes, set it off. So, Luca gets traded to the Los Angeles Lakers for Anthony Davis, Max Christie, that first round pick, which ultimately landed them in the lottery to even be able to be the #1 pick. So a lot happened. Nico was getting crucified literally by Dallas. I mean,
Mhm, yep.
like the city of Dallas, and I have friends down there were saying that they were walking around with caskets. Fire
Mhm.
Nico when Luca came back and just demolished Dallas as well. They're like fire Nico. Then after the trade, and we talked about this, Justin, I really believe that the Dallas Mavericks had won that trade.
Yeah.
I really believe that
Yeah.
with the pieces they had.
Wait,
Yeah,
wait, wait,
Kyrie.
wait. Hold on. I just can't agree with you on that one. Wait
I,
a
it's okay.
minute.
You can disagree. I still be with that trade when everybody was healthy. I still think that Dallas won that trade at that moment.
Let me scoot back a little bit. Hold on, real
Go
quick. I
ahead.
gotta.
Go
You
ahead.
got me. Gotta sit up a bit. Wait a minute now. Hold on. I gotta get really comfy. Okay.
Yes, I still to this day believe with the health that Dallas had
Right.
won
All
that
right. All
trade.
right.
You had Kyrie Irving, you had Anthony Davis, who now is able to play his actual position at the 4, with all the size that Dallas had with Gafford, with Likely. with, all the different pieces that they had. You bring in Max Christie, who played very well after that trade happened. Dante Exum was showing a lot of growth this year. So I true Spencer Dinwiddie. I really believed that Dallas had won that trade. You get a Luka Doncic in LA, but you have no big. Jackson Hayes has not proven to stop anybody. You know what I'm saying? It'll get you a couple dunks here and there, but they didn't have any big, and then they had no defense. I mean, you had Dorian Finney-Smith, who's a decent wing defender. That was it. It was just like,
where was that guy who was drafted originally by the Nuggets in the second round? Oh goodness, I can't think of his name right now. Went to Minnesota for a little bit, then came back.
Oh, Vanderbilt.
Yeah, Jared Vanderbilt.
Jared Vanderbilt. Yeah, they have him, and he showed up. Now, this is the thing about that trade. LA, they played well. They had the initial honeymoon phase. Where everybody
exactly what it is.
Yep, they were playing well defensively. Austin Reeves was looking like an all-star the way he was playing. Luka hadn't, really understood. So him taking a back seat, trying to figure it out, was the best thing for the Lakers. Now, when they tried to put him in the forefront, you need to score. You need to do this. Then we began to see that the pace that the Lakers had been playing with all season, Luka wasn't used to that. And he couldn't keep up with that necessarily.
Right.
And then everything was exposed. They didn't have any bigs to protect the rim. The pace, they couldn't keep up with the pace. Luka wasn't really able to keep up with the pace that the Lakers and JJ Redick had put into place. So they kind of fell off. You know what I'm saying? And it showed. But with all that being said, everybody got hurt for Dallas. This is part of that tumultuous season. Kyrie Irving goes down with the torn ACL. Anthony Davis gets hurt his first game.
Right.
We're used to that. Yeah, we're kind of used to that at this point. But gets hurt the first game after dropping 26 and 13 in the first two quarters.
Right.
It was against a Houston team that was the number 2 seed in the Western Conference.
Right.
So we saw the potential of what could happen. But it never happened. Gap goes down the next game. Likely had been out. So, I mean, everybody just gets hurt. They're pulling people off the Z League. I mean, they didn't know where to go at this point. It wasn't even the G. They was going overseas finding people because how many people were getting hurt, right?
Right.
But, so that happens. Dallas plummets. All of a sudden, it's draft lottery time, right?
Yep.
I again, Justin, I should be rich. I should have put it in a bet. I said, once I found out, and Justin will tell y'all, I will say these things, and he has proof. Like I said, the Indiana Pacers were going to come out the East this year. I texted him that at the very beginning of the playoffs. So there's proof. I have proof about these things, okay? I'm not just talking. But I was like, watch Dallas get the number 1 pick. They deserve it. I mean, after everything that's gone on, they deserve this number 1 pick. Lo and behold, what happens with the best player in college basketball looming and has been one of the best players since he was like 15 years old at the Rucker, Cooper Flag. And so, yes, a very good player. NBA ready. He's been NBA ready for, like I said, a couple years now, even outside of his freshman year in Duke. But Cooper Flag goes number 1 to the Dallas Mavericks. So talk to me a little bit, Justin. What do you think about this move?
Well, you just bolstered up your front line. You could talk about him coming off the bench. You could talk about a guy who's going to be there for you, and he'll be your franchise player. And you think about what it's going to lead for the Dallas Mavericks. It automatically makes you a contender. And you think about, well, Kyrie just re-up for 3 years. You still have AD for a couple of years if you don't trade him, right? I mean, Dallas is known to trade people. But if you keep everybody together, Derek Lively just re-upped as well. Now you look at that roster, you say, hey, we got a pretty good front court. Once we get Kyrie back, we'll have a nice player who could be able to get things started for us. Now you got to make sure you get that shooting guard position taken care of. But then you look at the rest of the lineup and say, hey, we're going to be all right. And then as Cooper Flag continues to get better and better and better, and guys start to leave, right? Eventually Kyrie will leave. Eventually you'll have AD leave, right? You're still able to build the Cooper Flag and Derek Lively together. Now you have that unit together. Now you could be able to say, okay, let's go get us a guard. Let's get us somebody who could get Cooper Flag the ball, who could be able to have that real nice spacing for us as well. Dallas is on to something. And, even though I may not agree immediately, it's hard to give up on Luka, baby. It's hard to give up on Luka. But I tell you what, the consolation prize, it's not bad to have Cooper Flag be that player. Now, will he be the type of scorer? Us being Nuggets fans, will he be the type of scorer that Carmelo was the first year, where he averaged over 20 points a game and immediately came out and was just dominant out there? I don't think we're going to see that immediately from Cooper Flag.
Mhm.
But trust me, a couple of years down the road, he could be the guy who could be one of the best, top five, if not the best player in NBA. Obviously, you got Wemby and other guys who have a lot to say about that, but he will make Dallas definitely be a destination for other free agents throughout the years.
Absolutely. And let me just ask you this real quick, as we're getting ready to wrap up the show. But
Sure.
what do you think Dallas does? Because there's rumors that Kyrie could be back around,
Uh,
January-ish, maybe February. But with, I hate to say it, because again, that's being Nuggets fans, but Russell Westbrook just opts out of his contract to become a free agent. You have Chris
yeah,
Paul who's out there lingering around. So do you go get one of those players just to kind of fill that somewhat void of Kyrie until he comes back?
Russell Westbrook wouldn't be a bad choice. I mean, he already has, a huge jersey collection with all the teams that he's been to the last decade.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, obviously, I would love to see Russ back with the Nuggets one way or the other, along with Bruce Brown, and maybe you get you a shooter and another 3-and-D guy. But we're not here to talk about them today. For Dallas, they will need somebody to be able to take the minutes, though. They will need somebody who will be able to organize the offense, and then we'll see what they have. I haven't looked deep into their roster, in that sense to say, okay, who's the guys they currently have on there? So forgive me a bit on that one.
Mhm.
But I will say every team needs depth. Every team needs those depth pieces. And to get a guy like Westbrook, who, as he's shown with the Nuggets this year, is a guy that can still make things happen. Obviously, he had his hiccups here and there, but he had a period in the middle of the season where he was rolling. And
Mhm.
there were talks, at least with amongst fans, where guys were like, should he be starting, not Jamal Murray? Like, what's going on? Right.
Mhm.
But he could spell you a bit. Chris Paul is another guy who could spell you a little bit. He's about to touch 40.
Yeah.
So those will be the guys that you maybe will be able to look at. The question you have to ask yourself this if you're Dallas.
Mhm.
Are we a contending team next year? And if
Right.
you're not a contending team in a West that is just a gauntlet, then
Mhm.
you maybe will say, let's go and get the experience now, do what we can, and go after it the following year. But hey, man, the season is young.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're in the off season. Trades
Mhm.
will happen. We don't know what will happen. As we're talking, somebody could be making a crazy trade. As we're talking, the New Orleans Pelicans can be able to trade away their first round pick next year for somebody
Mhm.
who's in the teens. You just never know who it could be. So we'll find out soon.
And just some of the trade talks or trades that have already happened. As you said, the Pelicans did trade CJ McCollum
Yep.
to the Washington Wizards for Jordan Poole.
Yep.
They did very well in the draft. I think they were probably one of those teams that had a sneaky good draft this year. Of course, we saw Drew Holiday get traded for Anthony Simons. So Drew Holiday headed to the Portland Trail Blazers. Anthony Simons, who is a very good player, averaged 19.8 points a game last year, heading to the Boston Celtics. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does in that system, with Joe Mazzulla over there. Of course, Kristaps Porzingis going to Atlanta. I just trade KD. That's the biggest one so far.
Yep.
Going
Yep.
to the Houston Rockets, with plenty more to come, I believe. I don't think the Boston Celtics are done making moves. Again, I don't know. I don't think our Nuggets are going to do anything, which I don't know what's going on in Denver, people. Let's just say that. But we'll see what happens. But of course, as we go on, moving forward, I'll definitely keep everybody updated with the trades. Before we end off, Justin, we just got our Throwback Thursday hoop
Yes,
lesson today.
sir.
So I think you'll like this one. But here's our Throwback Thursday hoop lesson.
Let's
I don't know
go.
if y'all can see whose jersey I'm wearing right now, but I'm going to talk about this player for a little bit. Now, this player specifically gets a lot of flack just simply because he never won a championship. Although he's one of the greatest players to play his position, and Shaquille O'Neal lets him know about it all the time on Inside the NBA. But Charles Barkley was one of the greatest power forwards to ever play this game. An undersized power forward that, only being 6'6", you couldn't keep Charles off the board. You couldn't stop him from scoring. And Charles was a decent defender as well. Now, in the 1994 playoffs, Game 3 against the Golden State Warriors, Charles Barkley goes bananas, okay? Charles has 56 points, 14 rebounds, but 27 points in the first quarter, all right? You couldn't stop Charles. Charles was hitting the mid-range. He had a couple dunks. He was knocking down threes. I mean, Charles Barkley was all over the place. One of the greatest games for his career.
All right, y'all. There is the Throwback Thursday hoop lesson with my man, the round mound of rebound, Charles Barkley. He's my favorite power forward of all time. I know he's not the greatest, but he's mine. He's my favorite power forward of all time.
I mean, obviously Tim Duncan is the greatest, and if you don't think he's the greatest, you have a problem. But I want to look at one other performance, and I'm searching it up right now, so forgive me. But Charles Barkley, Game 7 against Seattle. I know he put up some crazy numbers in that game too. So let me look it up real quick. Yeah, here we go. Good God, man. So just when you think about how great Charles Barkley is, Game 7 at the crib, this is going to get you to the finals. He had 44 points and 24 rebounds.
That's a determined player right there, Jesse.
What are we talking about? And so when you look at him, let's just call it what it is. He just had the Jordanitis. That's the reason why he didn't win a championship. Just had the Jordanitis. I mean, he lost to MJ. Great opportunity. They had home court advantage too, and they lost in that series. And so just never was able to get back. Obviously, he got a couple of more chances in the Western Conference Finals, and then ran into Utah, who then lost to Chicago with MJ as well. But it just shows you how special of a time it was. And it's not like how the NBA is today, where everything's wide open. We're talking about hand checking. We're talking about grabbing and all that. And just to see Charles Barkley do that, man, he was truly, truly a fantastic player. He's one of the greats, no matter if he has a ring.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you talk about Charles Barkley had the Jordanitis, you know, Magic might get his 6 if Jordan doesn't, you know, Clyde might have what, 2 if, you know, if Jordan wasn't there. Barkley would have
he would have had 3 because he was traded. What's Clyde traded?
It would have been 2 because Houston won, and then the next season is when Clyde was traded to Houston, and then he got his first, and so I would have had 2 if he was, because it was 93
right
when Houston won their first, and that was when Jordan left, and then 94-95 is when they met up with the Orlando Magic, and they swept Orlando in that series, in that finals, but that was when Clyde got there, was the 94-95 season.
You're spot on.
Barkley, Sean Kemp would have had 1. You know, Gary Payton got his later with, you know, Miami in 2006 with Dwayne Wade and Shaquille O'Neal. But Karl Malone, John Stockton would have potentially had 2. So, you know, that's when we talk about the GOAT, that's the conversation I bring up, is all the other greats that would have had championships had this one player not been there.
Oh, yeah.
you know?
I mean, plenty of guys. I mean, Reggie Miller would have had 1. Earlier.
Another
Mark Jackson. I still consider Mark Jackson. Look, if you look at the way that he was as a point guard, just truly a point guard there in assist. There are so many great players. Cleveland Cavaliers had Mark Price and the crew, man. I mean, 92 they got to the Eastern Conference Finals, got bounced, right? Alonzo Mourning would have had 1 much earlier if it wasn't for him. Tim Hardaway would have had 1, right? There's so many players you talk about that would have had a championship. And unfortunately, Charles is another one. Kevin Johnson, right? Dan Marley. Those guys would have 1 too. But unfortunately, you ran into number 23.
Hometown Tom Chambers, man. You know, did you know he's from Colorado?
Played at Boulder. No, he didn't play at Boulder. He played at Fairview.
Fairview, yep.
Yeah. Fairview in Boulder. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So, but man, we can talk about this. We can be on here for hours, but you know, again, my man Justin, I appreciate you coming on today. If y'all are on here and watch this, go on and hit that subscribe button. We're growing, man. We almost had 300 subscribers, Justin.
Hey man, hey, hold on, man. Let me get my mind right. Let me help you. Listen here, man. My man Azlan Williams has been giving you some great content, and he's been doing it for a couple of years now. Run those numbers up, okay? Spell Basketball is the place to be. Make sure you run those numbers up. Subscribe. Also follow. Make sure you hit that like button. Get everything done. If you're looking for an opinion on sports, an opinion on basketball from somebody who's actually done it at the pro level, at college, at high school, play basketball against some of the greats, okay? I can't tell you one of the stories, but maybe he'll tell you the story sometime soon, all right? This is how you want to be able to make sure that you listen to. Run those numbers up for Spell Basketball.
My man, I appreciate you so much, Justin. And again, Justin is everywhere. I'm like this man down on the Holy Culture Radio. He's actually on there a couple times. He's on Channel 4, right?
Yes, sir. CBS Colorado, Channel 4.
CBS Colorado. He can be talking about everything on there. He's an anchor for the Mountain West. I mean, just he's everywhere. All right, so y'all go talk to my boy Justin. He's on Instagram at Justin Adams TV. If y'all got any more jobs for him, ask me first. I mean, he got like 3, 5, like you gotta lie. Like, ask me first if I need a job. I'm just messing with you.
Right.
Justin's a guy, man. So again, I appreciate you, Justin. But yeah, so that is the Spell Basketball Show for today. As Justin said, as I said earlier, hit that subscribe button. I'm also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Follow me on those platforms. If you are audio listeners, I am on there almost every Wednesday. Yep, we switched it to Wednesday. So every Wednesday. And so I appreciate y'all. Thanks for tuning in. But until next time, this is Azlan Williams with the Spell Basketball Show. My man Justin Adams is a guest with the stats, the facts, and all that. We will see y'all next time.
Hey, salute. Be blessed.